A lot of the models are not transparent to us, especially with generative AI models like ChatGPT or even DeepSeek. Because as you know, all deep learning models probably involve the use of a backpropagation network or neural network. And within the hidden layer, the reason why it's called hidden is that nobody knows how many layers are actually there.
Hi everyone, this is Yael from the Wild Intelligence podcast, and I am pleased to have my friend and colleague, Professor Guan Seng Khoo, who is an experienced senior management professional, ex-academic, and data scientist with PhD in computational physics and computer-aided drug design with postdoc R&D and MSc supervision in AI applications in finance and info security. Together, we explore the complexities of AI, particularly concerning data ethics, transparency of AI models, and the challenges of understanding their inner workings. The discussion highlights the lack of clarity in how data is used in LLMs and the potential for misunderstandings among decision makers regarding AI's architecture and limitations. We also touch upon the strategic considerations for companies adopting AI, the importance of defining clear objectives, and the potential risks associated with over-reliance on complex, opaque systems, including data integrity and cyber security concerns. If you like this show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Wild Intelligence, and on Substack, wildintelligence.xyz. We're also on every podcast platform like Spotify and Apple. I look forward to your feedback and stay tuned. Hey, Guan, it's good to see you too. How are you?
Doing okay, and I hope you are well too.
Yes, I'm good. I'm good. It's a pleasure to have you back. We covered a bunch of topics in the past together in our previous
Yes,
ventures, and I'm
yeah,
super excited for this new conversation with you about AI and the various difficulties that we can encounter about data ethics and input and outputs. I mean, just you want to just to tell us a bit about yourself in a few words.
yes. I was an early user of AI back in the 90s when we ran a hedge fund at the Man Group. So we actually built our own neural networks, especially, and also experimented with other methods like genetic algorithm, fuzzy logic, and things like that. And of course, visualization plays a large part. So at
Mm,
the end of it, we feel that a lot of the articulation on AI today is still based too much on hype or
right.
over exaggeration in the sense that a lot of the models are not transparent to us, especially with generative AI models like ChatGPT or even DeepSeek. Because as you know, all deep learning models probably involve the use of a backpropagation network or neural network. And within the hidden layer, the reason why it's called hidden is that nobody knows how many layers are actually there, how
Mm,
many nodes are actually there, and when there's a discussion linking them to the cost of usage, the use of
yeah,
the energy use and the emission of greenhouse gas emission, it's challenging because you are wandering in the shadow, in the dark world of the hidden layers without knowing exactly whether there's really a million parameters or a
mm,
billion parameters and so on. So within the hidden layer itself, it poses a challenge. And then, of course, unless you're the coder or programmer, you wouldn't be aware of how many factors exist in the input layer as well at the data input level. So using the analogy of the AI learning models like supervised learning and unsupervised, could we have another model on the data input or data entry in terms of whether they are supervised in terms of the data entry or unsupervised? And that creates a lot of chaos as well and
That's right.
misunderstanding.
That's right, and I agree. And thank you for this this overview, because actually I think that most people, most decision leaders, and policymakers miss this understanding of how far and how many various difficulties actually in the architecture of these models that we speak about. You mentioned DeepSeek, ChatGPT, but we see others like Claude from Anthropic. We never really know from where the data comes. We never really understand what is supervision compared to the lack of supervision. We lack also of the misunderstanding of how the networks are architected. Um, and that's right. And as you mentioned, we don't necessarily know the various definitions of input, hidden, and output layers. So there is, I won't go that far about chaos, but I think that we profoundly and dramatically lack of, uh, I mean, perspectives in and trust, particularly when it comes to ethical implications that I try to cover also on my end. But it's really the far west, and
Yes,
and
yes,
and yeah. And what do you
yeah.
see in terms of scalability, in terms of how we use data, whether it's small data sets or large data sets? What's your vision about it?
Uh, Let me answer from the way ChatGPT and other generative AI platforms are marketed. The way they are marketed is that if you want to use the more advanced, complicated platform, you have to pay more, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the subscription itself doesn't tell you how much of a system like ChatGPT or Copilot scrape the data from the World Wide Web, from the
Right,
from all over. So we don't
right.
really know what the subscription data comprises. Are they really specialized data?
Mm-hmm.
Are they big data? So, for instance, if I ask ChatGPT to write an essay of somebody celebrating a birthday, then everybody will be composing their birthday composition differently, right? Some could celebrate it with a large party of relatives and friends. Some could be just sharing the birthday cake with their immediate
Yeah,
families, maybe two or three people.
yeah,
So the aggregate of all this data, when you grab it from big data, cloud data, will probably lead you to an average result ultimately, because everybody is posing the same question or something similar. So
mm-hmm.
obviously that type of data, which we call big data, would contribute to an average result or something like that. Whereas if we want to be more specific and targeted, so we'll be looking at small data. So the type of data that is inputted into the AI platform
Yes, the
plays a
most.
part in terms of whether they are ethical or not, because the averaging in the cloud can include the good attributes with the bad attributes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with small data, probably it is more supervised in terms of the data inputs. So that way, if you are using only your in-house data or whatever, you actually don't need to worry about ethical data and output so much, because you are controlling the data input. So that would be similar to you in terms of your concern. And the other thing, of course, is that we know that there's another learning model called reinforcement learning. With the reinforcement learning, the architecture is slightly different from
Mm-hmm.
unsupervised as well as supervised learning. So the challenge is that when we use the different models, nobody documents it clearly, whether it's in ChatGPT or DeepSeek or other system, because they are not, nobody knows how to validate these learning models to make it into a proper governance or a framework. So the challenge
Right.
then is that like what you mentioned, the data aspect has to be documented, whether in terms of their model or the types of data. And then going to the hidden layer, if the countless number of hidden layers, let's say a billion parameters or nodes are involved, how then do we actually document it for people to understand or to validate? Unless the person is the programmer or coder himself, especially if we are using a subscription model from the big tech companies like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. So that is a big challenge. And then with reinforcement learning, we know that the learning takes place with some kind of minimum of two outputs so that you can measure the deviation from the target because you want to reward the learning if you are achieving an output very close to your target so that it learns and is biased in a way to achieve a more positive conclusion. So the challenge then is that the user has to understand the architecture. They have to understand the small nuances in terms of the data entry. They have to understand the different types of model used. It could be a hybrid model instead. And they
Mhm.
also need to understand how the architecture is curated differently for different learning models and things like that. So it's really a massive challenge if somebody wanted to develop guardrails because it is system level based rather than individual layer based, I would say.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I mean, it's kind of a challenge. It's a piece of challenge that you mentioned just here about the implications. And my question now is, we hear about OpenAI um, having this kind of format and subscriptions, for more than $20,000, per month. And as you mentioned, these are the subjects of, big data and large companies trying to uh, avoid the cost of several scientists and research, particularly for the uses. But my question here is, do you think, I mean, do you personally think that companies can define their uses and the goals they want to, the outcome they want to get from the uses of these kinds of models? Do we know how to define the goal of why do we need these kinds of models to do the job that a scientist or any large consulting company can do? What's your feedback on it?
Yes, it's a very good question. So I can actually, it's good that you mention the goals or objective of the use of the AI system. So I think
Mm,
that the objective itself, the aims of using the AI is very important because if we know, right, AI today is the application can be structured differently. You can
yeah.
use the AI system as an agent, or you can use the AI system as an assistant, right?
Mm,
So an example of an assistant would be like Siri on your Apple phone.
mhm,
You ask Siri to translate for you from, say, English to Spanish or vice versa or something like that. So the
mhm,
system assists you, and it is prompted by your instruction. Can you translate? Can you ask Siri? You're asking Siri to do something. So
yeah.
it's prompted by the customer using it. So in a way, it's very similar to prompt engineering
Mhm,
that is used in generative AI. So in theory, if you use generative AI in the appropriate way to assist you, then you could achieve certain things very well.
yeah.
However, if you use the AI as an agent, the agent does not need so much of the user input because it is it is more like a reinforcement and unsupervised learning model where you don't need the human input or instruction so much because the learning is more autonomous, right?
Mhm,
So if
mhm,
that is the case, if you can use it to apply to discover some outliers or something creative that stands out from the average, then obviously it can be useful. However, most people who use AI their objectives are often dictated by the big tech companies rather than having a model of what they want to do. Because, as you know, data is only one aspect, but knowledge about the business model is the second aspect. So a
Yeah.
coder can code the network architecture in a variety of manner, but whether it applies to a suitable problem in a business scenario is another thing. So I think the world is short of people with the modeling background as well, especially the models that are related to their business.
Right. And we always ask, this question, this precious question is, what do we optimize for?
Yes, that's right.
Particularly in the AI era. That's right. That's right. And I have another question, and this is probably one of the toughest question I always ask, but probably the most important. And you mentioned that several times, but I mean, it's maintaining a data integrity, particularly in terms of uses. It's like, uh, as you mentioned, we ask Siri or Gemini or whoever, about to do a task or any kind of prompt. What does it challenge to get from the input to the output? What kind of integrity, what kind of trustworthiness does that engage to get the result we expect? How much resources? How much energy does it cost us to get a machine do what we want instead of a human task? In terms of comparison, how can we imagine that today in our world?
Okay, let me use a scenario in portfolio management. So I'll try to explain what it means. As you know, right, in portfolio management, let's say you are investing to earn higher returns for your retirement. One
Mhm.
of the important key process to do is asset allocation among the various asset classes, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you want to enhance or maximize the returns from your portfolio, obviously the diversification from the asset allocation is very important. But does it
Mhm.
mean that you want to include over 100 assets or instrument in your portfolio? Or do you want to just consider what is the optimal number of
Mm.
assets that you
Yeah.
require, which can be just 10% or 20% instead of the 100%? So if you don't understand portfolio management and the loss in diversification benefits when the number of asset classes keep on increasing, eventually the your optimal value will plateau in terms of the achievement of the risk return rewards, right? So that means that we are unnecessarily forcing the engine to do a lot of analysis when potentially your outcome could be achieved with only eight inputs or eight asset classes or 10 out of
Mhm.
100. So this is a form of what we call filtration. So, but that comes from the user. The user must understand what he's deploying the AI model for. So for my case, because I've been working in portfolio and risk management for a long time,
Mhm.
I do believe that there is the Pareto principle where 80% of your insights can be explained by 20% or 10% and 90%. So that means you don't need to use such a humongous network. Probably a small model will be enough for the same kind of achievement. And that means straight away your energy consumption is very different. So
Mhm.
that comes from a lack of understanding in terms of in terms of how people are using their business experience and the type of models they deploy when they are running the say the chat on ChatGPT or on Gemini or things like that. So that is one challenge, the lack of alignment between what you understand about the business scenario and what kind of tools will be enough. Sometimes something simple should be enough, right? And
Right.
then the other aspect, of course, is that the who maintains the network if you are applying for something new? Who can adjust or or maintain the integrity of the network to do something else? So that part nobody answers. It's like you have an escalator system. Your escalator works for the first 3 to 5 years. But after 7 or 8 years, it runs into problems in terms of maintenance, the wear and tear, and things like that. So that's why we always have a guarantee or something where whenever the system breaks down,
Mhm.
things can be recovered very fast. So it's like instead of having a true Six Sigma, over time it deteriorates into Three Sigma.
Yeah.
So on the process side, so those are the challenges when people use AI models under without enough awareness of the process and maintenance issue. Yeah.
It's super interesting, and thank you for giving this vision of equity, and particularly the investment branch. I really often I'm working in this spectrum of financial and everything that's related to assets, and I see how much the organization, the governance, the direction that we want to give to decision, and how we manage it, how organizations particularly manage their assets compared to the uses of AI today. There is there is an arising confusion that I see, and particularly for decision leaders that don't necessarily know that there is something behind the prompt. And I always cover that, almost every week, about asking the questions about why do you do what you do today? What kind of answer do you expect from the prompt to
Yes,
to
I
provide
agree.
you? You know, um, I I think in my perspective, I know that there are a lot of influences because of the trends and everything that's about learning to prompt, how to prompt, and how to do things with AI. But you mentioned that about the reality and the dystopia uh, aspects, about we want to go fast and to get the answers from the network, but we consume as well very much more than we've been previously done. And
Correct.
what do you
Correct.
think about all this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you already hit the nail on the head in terms of your mention of the objective, because what people don't understand is that when you are using AI or trying to deploy AI like ChatGPT for the first time, it means that you have to step back. You have to step one step back
Mhm.
and look at it from first principle in terms of your strategy. What do you want to use the AI system for? And I think people don't consider the strategy roadmap before they deploy it. Maybe they are just or they invest a lot of money thinking that what is promised by the big tech companies, the success will come along. But what they don't understand is that everything is linked to their corporate strategy first. Why do they need AI when they are doing very well without AI? You know? Or why do you need something to be complicated when my rice cooker has fuzzy logic to help me already? So what I'm trying to say is that if things are simple, it can solve a lot of problems because it will be more adaptable and it will be more flexible. So with a humongous architecture deployed today, we are paying 20 to 50,000 just to justify the use of a big data or cloud database AI tool, then you may unnecessarily be spending too much to solve a small problem. So what I mean to say is that truly, what is the strategy? It does it involve aggregation of a lots of data or different types of data, say in ESG, say in
Mhm.
sustainability risk management. Obviously, you need to handle structured data, unstructured data, find correlations between them or whatever. So it may be justified to use an agent or a assistant AI model like ChatGPT to at least do some screening to help you. So if it is for screening to identify the material factors in ESG, then it potentially could be very useful. But if it is just to find a correlationship among the weather, among the climate change and other features globally, then it could be a huge challenge. And you may be just throwing money into a black hole. So the challenge then is, are the companies aware of their own strategy? Have they decided on the new roadmap to when they start deploying AI or using generative AI tools or more advanced AI tools? So this is a question that the board would also have to tackle. And of course, the other thing is, other than the costs of using AI in terms of the energy emission, the other aspect is when everything is on the cloud, especially with the tools from with the subscription model tools from the big tech companies, it also means that cyber security issues will be cyber threats will be a big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and wow, thank you. It's you covered a lot of aspects that I'm trying to articulate daily, and what I can give you from by experience on the ground and the feedback that I get is that people are just feeling the FOMO effect, that not using AI they're gonna miss something, and the fear that is growing about not knowing what to do with AI is right now really present. And obviously it's a fact. And you spoke earlier about reinforcing learning, and we discussed about data integrity. But as these kinds of aspects about, we enter into an unknown, uncertain world, and we want to get the answers as fast as possible. So we use technologies like AI, blockchain, and others. And in parallel, we have a lot of consequences, bad consequences, because we do the bad decisions because they are framed not in the proper way. So we do fast decisions, quick and dirty, as we say. And the
Yes.
problem right now that we face is about having safe and secure uses of AI, which is what I'm dealing on a daily basis, and this is probably, I don't know how if ever we can articulate the growing dangers and hazards of the consequences of the decisions we do today. And you mentioned that earlier about the board members. I really don't know what's the severity we're going to have to address within the next 5 to 10 years because of the misuses, because of these decisions about using AI to solve maybe problems that don't necessarily exist. So I'm both concerned and aware that yes, it's going to happen, but we don't really know where it goes, and that's the proper effects of all the world runs to get answers from AI, from these
Correct.
kinds of uses. But
Correct.
we see scenarios, I mean, real world scenarios almost every day about supply chains, cyber attacks, as you mentioned, but also climate change. AI won't solve the problems of climate change.
Yep. Yep.
It's going to
I
worsen,
agree.
actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The other aspect, of course, is I think you are familiar with third party risk, right? Or vendor risk.
yeah,
So what most people don't understand is that whenever they purchase a subscription model from the big tech companies like Amazon, or especially an AI system or platform from Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, straight
mhm,
away they are exposed to third-party risk or the supplier risk.
mhm,
So should a cyber attack occur at one of Amazon's data center, for instance, or a natural disaster happen where the data center is destroyed during an earthquake or whatever,
right.
that means whatever you are trying to use on your AI subscription model will also fail as well. So is there a backup for this? Do you pay more for such backup and things like that?
Mm.
So I always find that if you can code your own AI model, you can attune it or curate it to actually uh, to kind of to develop it to cater to why you want to use the model. That
Mm.
means probably the business people already understood what they want to use it for and also to secure it as well. So the challenge today is that as generative AI dumps down, it dumps down the coder's ability to or the in-house ability to code your own AI program. The challenge is that it makes learning easier in a very negative way because you begin to think less creatively compared to if you were doing the coding of your AI system that you are going to use as well. So the challenge then is to kind of align the subject matter expertise or the business expertise with the coder or with the coding algorithm. And that means that a lot of work today has to be teamwork based, collaborative based, rather than just a solution from an individual technology company. So I think it's a debate in terms of the uncertainty because this kind of thinking is still not very apparent in a lot of companies, especially the big tech firms itself, you know. So so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I'm also concerned about that in the sense that with the for instance Siri and mobile phone or with the calculator that you have, electronic calculator, people stop counting mentally. And that is a backward step. It's a slight deterioration of our mental faculties. Yeah.
Yeah, coming back, and thank you for mentioning that. Coming back, to the beginning of the conversation, of our conversation about, data integrity, it seems that I see more and more people, that don't have this capacity, maybe the cognitive capability to fact check the information they receive. And that's a growing concern because I'm reading almost every day research papers, because I'm focusing on AI safety, and AI safety has several aspects, particularly in terms of framework. And when it comes on one side to the uses of an internal system and the out and the external system. And what I see is that most stakeholders of any kind of company that deals with data are not even aware of exactly what you say, is that we are not capable to take distance of the what the machine provides us within the internal system. So we just copy paste as robots, if I can compare humans to robots at some point. But also it's becoming more and more difficult to discern, to select the right information from the false one. It becomes more and more blurred in between the chains of, in terms of reasoning of what is true and what is wrong. And I see that, particularly at schools and in the universities, when you have the students just recording the teacher, the course, or when immediately you have the kids coming back home, and immediately when they have a lesson to do or just an exercise, they go directly to ChatGPT without knowing what the truth is. So they provide
Yes.
just an information that might be wrong. I see a lot of board members, by the way, when I discuss with them, just grabbing their phone and just giving me an answer of provided by the chat. And
Correct.
I think it's I don't want to speak about the dramatical aspects of it. I'm just trying to say, how can we save the world or make a step back about awareness, about literacy, about education, about entering into the world of AI and automation the way we should. And it seems that we probably lost the momentum. And maybe I sound maybe, maybe not that optimistic, just trying to be realistic. How do we do to get step back or just re-enter the right path, the right journey, the right way, and the way we should, because of that kind of imbalance that is being created. Probably, I don't only blame the large companies to push AI for the use in terms of uses. I'm also see the responsibility of the humans on their ends to to
I think the challenge is the corporates, the companies, the user have to decide, have to think about the complexity of the problem he or she faces. Because the more complex the problem, obviously having an AI system to assist you, say to screen out the negative attributes or the positive attributes, would be very useful. However, that would mean that some of the so-called negative attributes could be holding some positive quality, like like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. So that means that a human being alone won't be able to do this, but a system like AI could help you a lot. So if they know the strength of the AI in this area, then there will be optimal collaboration between the human being and the AI system. However, if the user keep on only looking at the strength of the AI system rather than its weaknesses, then it'll be challenging. And I think the world today, because it's driven by P&L, is driven by capitalism, people tend to focus on the strength of the AI system, whether it's generative AI or other AI, rather than its weakness. I think not enough publications or focus target the weaknesses. So I think what we can do, although I'm not so optimistic, because truly we are living in a capitalist world, is that the focus on weaknesses of the AI system is also very important, because it is only when you fail then you learn how to improve. You know, that's what reinforcement learning is about. But the reinforcement learning can lead to knowing more and more about less and less as well. So that is its weakness. You know.
Yeah, we need to
So
find the right balance and the right strike here. Absolutely.
correct. Yes.
Well, that was an amazing conversation. Thank you, Guan, for
Oh,
the insights and covering such
thank you for
amazing
your
topics.
prompt question. You were very useful.
Thank you. Appreciate.